Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Mirus Sofa Time. I'm Dan Sharp.
I'm Paul Tomlinson.
So what we're going to cover today in the latest episode, I think we're going to call them episodes now, we're going to do a series or a season.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
We're going to cover why, as an IT support company, managed service provider, when a business inquires to us about our services, we won't instantly give them a price for what we would charge. We get contacted via email or via a call from a business saying, I'm 30, 35 people, how much do you charge for IT support? And I guess what we want to chat about today is why we don't think it works for either side to just say we charge X per month.
Yeah, and I think, the first thing really is we used to do that.
Yep.
So it's about learning from our mistakes and understanding where that approach to pricing doesn't work really. For us now, the sales process, it's much more complicated, but it's much more complicated to make sure that we develop a relationship that lasts for much longer, that the fit works both ways, that we're the right support provider for the customer and that they're the right customer fit for us as well. I suppose if you talk us through the initial sort of sales inquiry process,
Yep.
And then I can kind of take over from where we bring in professional services.
Yeah, so if we receive an inquiry from let's take a 40 user accountancy company.
They're getting bigger, they were 35 a little while ago.
Well, we're always looking for larger customers. Is that we would first off probably have a conversation on the phone at a very high level to qualify that business in terms of, are they a good technical fit? Are they good location wise? Because if the kind of service levels we provide, them being based in Blackpool and us being based in Milton Keynes and London, it doesn't really work because you can't provide that kind of service you would want to. So we're at a very high level, we're trying to understand the key facts about that business, how many people they are, the technologies they use, the location, as I said.
I guess it's making sure the technologies align to our technologies as well.
Exactly.
I think we're really lucky to be both first in Mac as well as the sort of the PC side of things. But if they came up with a Linux environment, they were using Linux on their desktops, we probably wouldn't be the right provider for them.
No. So at that first, we would just at the high level understand the business. We would then arrange to go and have a more in-depth meeting to understand. I get to understand that business, get to know that business, understand a little bit about the culture, what their objectives are, where they're trying to grow, where they're evolving, and that can include, first off, just what they're doing at the moment for IT support. Is that who they're partnering with? Why maybe that's not working for them? Is that hours of support? Is that the service levels they're receiving, the technical skills of the people?
That understanding is key, isn't it? Because if they're going to get the same from us with the service that we might be offering, then there's no need for them to change. They've got to either change their requirements or we've got to talk about a slightly different type of service. But I guess if we don't ask that question, then we might end up with the same problem for the client they had before.
Absolutely. So it's very much, assess as a mechanics perspective, getting our head under the bonnet to see what the understanding of that business and the culture and their drivers for change. Because if we don't understand their drivers for change, then we can't help them and understand how the service we offer, because we don't offer a tailored service to every customer. We offer a service that works for both sides, and get a good understanding of that. If that works, then the next phase we move to is what we call a health check, which is a more technical assessment of that client's infrastructure.
So that's delivered by the professional service team.
It's not a sales process.
No, so I used to actually do these back in the day, but we use an engineer to go out, and these engineers are highly skilled engineers who are capable of installing solutions for our clients, and what they're there to do really is to look and see, does the infrastructure, has it been configured as per best practice? Is there any underlying technical issues that might be causing some problems for the client that they're not yet aware of? And really it's just to make sure that, sometimes as a user you don't really understand what it is that you've got. I'm terrible with cars. I buy a car but I don't necessarily understand everything about it, so that's why we've got mechanics. These engineers go in, they'll have a look, they've got a template they work from to try and understand exactly how things are configured, and they work alongside best practice to make sure that we're looking and saying how much memory should be allocated to this, how much hard disk should be available, how should this network card be configured, those type of things. But also doing basic penetration testing so we can understand where we are. Vulnerability scanning is probably a fairer description of what we actually do, to understand where the client is in terms of their firewall protection from the internet. So it's those type of things that we're doing really to understand exactly how things are configured, how the client currently operates, and how they're using the technology that they've got, and then we can take that away and create a report.
I think one of the really useful things from a business that inquires with a perspective, it really is an independent report. It's not a sales document. It's very much a factual overview of the situation as things stand. And I think a really good example is where with backups. If you have no technical resource within your business, you make the assumption that your backups work. You make the assumption that your backups are maybe backing up to a device in the office and then maybe to the cloud, but you have no independent verification of that unless you get reports on a daily basis. And that's one of the things that we would look at.
Yeah, I think, going back to some of the ones we've done in the past when the engineers come back and we talk about the findings, and to find out that people assume they've got a backup solution in place that's off-siting, and it's not. It's backing up from one corner of the office to the other corner, and if there's a fire, they'd lose all their data. But the point you made about the independent report, it really is that. I've seen the guys produce reports that basically say everything's been configured perfectly, there's nothing wrong with the infrastructure, the client doesn't need to spend any money on the infrastructure. But when we understand what the actual problems are from the sales meeting, we realise it's not actually to do with the technology, it's to do with the service that's being delivered that kind of manages the technology. So those reports are, they're, depending on the size of the infrastructure, they could be weeks that we actually spend creating those reports rather than just, popping a tool on and just having a look. Because what we've tried to do is to say it's not about the tools that we have as business, it's about whether or not if you look at something you could actually see there's a problem there.
And I think one of the things that we feel it's a strength of us is that we'll commit that time to somebody to it's part of that getting to know you phase as well. We're really putting the depth to understand that business and understand the technologies that they use, rather than just saying, oh, you're 30 people, you look like you use this, we'll quote you a price. We actually really want to know the ins and outs of how that business works, and we'll commit the time to that.
Yeah, I think I think the way we've always looked at it is that we want that relationship to be there for a long time. So if there's a cost involved in us kind of, explaining to the client where they are and trying to make sure that we've aligned the service proposal against what they actually need, and that takes us a week to do that, then that's worthwhile when we think about the lifetime of that customer and the value to us and the value of the relationship both ways.
I think that's, from our perspective, we do genuinely see it as a relationship. We're not looking to get somebody on a 12-month basis. We're looking for them to be their IT partner for 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 years. Some customers we've had 10, 12, 15 years.
Yeah, we've got one that's kind of almost a day one customer. But so we produce the health check document, and then what happens next?
So then the pre-sales consultant, the engineer that's been out to complete that, will produce a document. They will then give that to the business development manager, the salesperson, and they will jointly go and present that to the customer. So we're presenting the overview of what we found from a factual perspective of backups or antivirus or Windows patching or just general age of the infrastructure, with some high-level recommendations of a way we might want to take it longer term, whether that's moving to Office 365 or moving to the cloud, or just very high level, but trying to give you a picture of where we might look to take that business's IT. And that's produced alongside a sales document that is more about Mirus, more about the service we provide, and obviously the price we charge. I think one of the things that we really try and push on at that phase and get people to understand is what makes us different, and things that, I guess, questions that you should be asking of everybody that you interview at that phase.
Yeah, because I suppose when we're brought in, a lot of the time now it's on a referral basis, and somebody's got a problem, they speak to a friend, and the friend says, I use Mirus, you should use Mirus, and that's great. That's the best thing that, in terms of a sales lead we can get. It normally means we're not in a competitive situation, but I guess when we get a kind of Google inquiry or a phone call or whatever it might be, we're in a competitive situation against 2 or 3 other MSPs, and it's difficult when someone's buying to understand, well, like say, what are the questions they should ask. I think some of the things that I think are really important are the technology alignment. When we look at, if, like we said earlier about the kind of Linux support, a Linux client wouldn't be the right aligned client for us from a technical perspective. I think it's the hours of support. More and more businesses are extending their hours, and if you provide some of the local ones that work that we compete against are sort of 9 to 5:30, well, most people are in the office earlier than 9 now, and a lot of people work later or work remotely. So those things don't really work.
There's a lot of focus on, I guess, agile and flexible working, and that round-the-clock support rather than just between fixed hours is actually slightly becoming more important.
Yeah, and there's a cost obviously associated with extended hour support, but if your business operates within those hours, then you need to be able to service your clients, so you need to make sure you've got that IT support available.
I think another thing that we really encourage people to do is to visit the premises or the main hub of the IT companies they're talking to, because I think it's understanding the cultural alignment as well as technical alignment, because it is going to be a relationship. You're not buying 10,000 widgets and walking away. You've got to work with this business long term, and meeting some of the individuals within that place, or just a lot of the time when people come to our office, they get a feel for what the business is like that you couldn't present to somebody, if that makes sense, or you couldn't put into words or in a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah,
I think it's really difficult to explain what Mirus is even when you work here every day. So I think that feeling that you get, like you say, when you're sitting and talking to one of the engineers, and you just get that comfort factor of knowing that they're going to look after you. And I think, and equally on the flip side of that, if somebody's unwilling to allow you to visit their premises, then do they have a premises? Do they have the number of staff that they talk about having? All of those different things. So going and doing that visit really just gives you the confidence that you're buying into the right partner, I suppose. I guess the other thing that we would encourage people to do is have a look at the statistics of the support that the companies provide, whether that's customer satisfaction scores, SLAs, that kind of thing. Is because actually something we heavily monitor is our customer satisfaction scores. Yeah, I mean, within the business, we obviously get criticised a lot by the engineers who have so many statistics that they need to meet, but they're there to make sure that we deliver the right level of service to the client. And we've obviously got the CSAT, the customer satisfaction number that we use, which is based on the Smiley feedback tool, and that's on the board, available for everyone to see. When visitors come, when engineers are here, they can all see the target we're working towards there. And I think our CSAT score is probably one of the highest locally, so we feel really happy with what we're doing there, but we're not happy with the number. We want it to continue to improve. So I think it is looking at those metrics, looking at whether or not people are meeting the obligations that they're going to say they'll meet for you is the key. And I think another important thing is how the IT company you choose is going to onboard you, because it's very easy to say, yep, we pick you and you're our chosen company, but how do you get from knowing nothing about that business to a go live of support and users logging tickets? And we all know that there's always a little bit of a getting to know you period, but trying to reduce that getting to know you period down as much as possibly can. Yeah, that transition I think scares a lot of people when they're looking at it. I guess from a sales perspective, we see that as a really big reason that people don't change, just that fear of this could be quite hard work from all of our perspectives, and is it worth the hassle? Yeah, and I think sometimes changing services can be problematic. You try and change your broadband at home, you might end up with no internet for 2 days and the kids screaming because they can't get on YouTube. But I think the process we've developed now over the years, actually the onboarding process is so comprehensive that by the time they've finished that onboarding process in just a few days, we should be in a position that we should be able to provide the same, if not better, levels of service just within those first few days than the previous provider. And if we do that before the old relationship finishes, then it just means that there's no gap in terms of service for that client. Yeah, and again, I think we want to commit the resource to get the onboarding right from day one. It's not just about we'll send you an email with how to put an agent on your PC. Somebody actually visits the office, spends time looking at the infrastructure, documenting the infrastructure, and then when they bring that information back, present it to the service desk, the people that are going to do the day-to-day support. Yeah, I think that process when we introduced a presentation back to the service desk actually made a huge difference, because it was then we know who this 40-45 user client is, we understand what they do as a business, we understand the technology they've got and the problems they've got as well. So it really has helped to make sure that when the engineers get that first phone call, they're on it straight away, rather than kind of going, oh, right, you're a new client, not really quite sure. So that works really well. I think there's a number of other things that, as a prospective client, you can look at, whether that's certifications, Microsoft certifications, if you're a Microsoft-based environment, awards, and also just checking out general reputation, I guess, and taking references. I think the other thing is also that looking at things like the accreditation. So, for us, ISO 9001, 14001, 27001, they've been really important and a great addition to the business. Yeah. So I think that's probably enough to give people to kind of think about.
So we've as a guide and a helpful bit of resource that you can use, we've produced a template RFP document that we've tried to produce it so that it gives you food for thought as to when you're inquiring to a business like us, the kind of things you should probably know beforehand or have thought about, so that it makes that process a lot smoother, so that when you're inquiring to a business like us, you know the kind of questions we're going to ask, you know the high level bits that we're going to want to know in order to make that process as smooth as possible.
It's a great document.
So hopefully a link will magically appear underneath here of where you can access that. And that's it for today. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.